You ever notice how much power money has over your life? God damn. And they act like money isn't happiness, which it's not. But man, money sure decides whether you are not happy or not. It's really insane because we're the ones that are doing all the hard work, working harder than ever. And it's like, it's insane how much control money has over our freedom, right? Our freedom. Because if you don't have freedom of choice, are you really free? If you can't even buy anything, if you can't afford stuff, it's just so crazy how working 40 hours a week, 40 hours a week, like half of our waking hours isn't enough to make ends meet. It feels like it's rigged because we're all doing what we were told. That's the crazy part. If all Americans were out not working hard, not trying their best, yeah, we can understand. But you got the majority of Americans, 80% of people who are working their ass off that don't have enough savings. And it's so crazy. We don't even have the time to think about, why don't we have enough savings? What is going on? Well, now we've got to understand that we don't have savings because if we don't have savings, we're stuck. They make sure that we don't have 3 months of savings. If you had 3 months or 6 months of savings, would you deal with that shitty boss? Would you have taken that job for less than you know what you're worth? No. What's up, Lala? You go ahead, and when you do not have control over your own financial situation, other people control you. Here's how we do it. If you had to quit your job on Monday, would you have 3 months of savings? If you had to quit your job on Monday, would you have 3 months of savings? 1 for yes, 2 for no. And that's how we know we're stuck, is not many people could quit their job for 3 months on Monday. But your boss knows that too. And your boss knows that if you don't have that paycheck coming in 2 weeks, you're not going to be able to make rent. And so they know that if you are worried about not making rent, they're going to exploit that, right? Oh, hey, I need you to work this double shift. Oh, well, if you don't come in, I don't know if you've got a place at this company anymore, right? It's insane. But most of us can't quit on Monday. We all know we don't have 6 months of savings, but they make us feel like it's our fault, so we don't talk about it, right? Put a me in the chat if you feel that. They make us feel bad for shit they did, and then we don't talk about it because we're ashamed. Because they control the media, they control the narrative, and no matter how many people we get in these rooms saying, yeah, 40 hours a week isn't enough for me, somebody always comes in and denies their reality. They don't say to themselves, oh, maybe it's different for them than it is for me. Nope. They go, nope, you're wrong. And it's like, what? What? I did everything right. I followed all the rules. I kept my head down. I sacrificed and busted my ass at this company. I was there for 3 years. I asked for a raise, and I didn't get it. How is that? And it's when it's the corporation's goal to not give raises, to screw you over. All we're really saying is, why is it that if a company is successful, its employees aren't? Honestly, if a company is successful, its employees should be too. Put a 1 in the chat. If a company is successful, its employees should be too. You agree with that? 1's in the chat. Because that's the way America has always been. We see the stock market go up for the last 50 years. Right, Power? Right, Aroma? But the cost of living has freaking stayed the same. That is insane. Because we've gotten more productive, We've made more money for the companies, but they're paying less to us. And that's not on accident, because they know, right? Let's go. They know that if we don't have savings, that they've got control over us. They've got power over us. That's what it really comes down to. And we are all so stressed out 24/7 that our nervous system is on high alert all the time. We feel a threat because somebody's taking what should be ours. It's just hard to see. We're going to go over solutions in about 20 minutes. The Stu, we like to spend a lot of time talking about the problem, because one of the ways that they separate us is they make us think that there's 1,000 different problems. If somebody thinks it's an elbow issue and somebody else thinks it's a knee issue and somebody else thinks it's a heart problem, well, everybody's going to be working towards a different solution and a different cure. But we will be talking about solutions really soon. But let's talk about the problem, because one of the reasons is we're all stressed out. So we're reactive because we don't have any money. And then because the same people that control the economy also control the media, they give us a scapegoat, right? How many times have we seen illegal immigrants splashed across the front page of newspapers, even though that affects a marginal percentage of Americans, right? They keep us at each other's throats fighting over red versus blue. Because the more that we point fingers over different political bullshit, because you know, all political parties are political corporations, man. And if you don't like corporations that put profit over people, you're sure not going to like corporations that put power over people. So I don't understand why any regular, everyday American supports either political party. Both parties are two sides of the same coin, and that coin is in a billionaire's pocket. They're like good cop, bad cop. They both work for the same corrupt department. But then the department that they worked for took over all the businesses in the country. We are essentially a giant corporate town. Ask yourself, why doesn't Walmart, that makes billions of dollars a year, why doesn't Walmart pay their employees enough to care? Not even enough to care. Why don't they pay their employees enough just to smile? Because they know they don't have to pay their employees to smile. Because the only reason they would pay their employees enough to get them to smile is if they knew that us customers would leave if they didn't smile at us. Right? But because Walmart got rid of all the other local groceries, all the other local general stores, right? There used to be Roberto's General Store. There used to be Kim's Hardware Store. And that meant that when we walked into Walmart and they gave us the bird, we could walk out and go to the local general store. When we walked into the local grocery store and every single fruit and vegetable was just disgusting because the quality was so low, we would go to the local grocery store, right? That's the thing, Jason. We need to end corporate welfare, freedom for regular, everyday Americans. Because a job is this. A job is an owner of a company trying to do two things. They're either trying to hire someone so they can make more money, or they're trying to hire someone so they don't have to work as hard. Those are the two options. They're either trying to buy more profit or buy more time. And the goal and the deal in this country used to be that if a company was successful, its employees would be too. But that's not the case in America anymore. Not for any reason other than the fact that if you don't have 6 months of savings, you can't say no. You can't say no to your boss. You can't say no to a bad situation. You're stuck. If you don't have money, you don't have freedom of choice. And if you don't have freedom of choice, you don't really have freedom. Money plays a huge role in how much freedom you have. It really does. Money determines whether you can move somewhere else. Money determines whether you can get another skill or find another job. Money determines almost everything in your life. Yet, when you don't have enough money, when the corporations do it to us on purpose, they blame you, right? They blame us. That's because we are looking for a problem. Our nervous systems, we are on such high alert all the time. We are so stressed all the time that we feel like we're on the brink, right? You can't quit your job, but you also don't have the time or energy to find a new skill. But you can't tell the boss no because you don't want to get out of their good graces. So you're just literally surviving. You're treading water all the time, right? Sea salt, I appreciate it, but how is that any different than just telling people to not show up at work on Monday, right? Unless you build the structure that actually supports people and makes it so that they can take a step onto solid ground rather than what I think you're asking is a leap of faith. Hey, if all of us file exempt at great personal risk, something might happen. Seesaw, give it 5 more minutes. That's exactly what we are building. I will get there. Fight the power. I 1000% agree. The main thing is, though, if you don't have 6 months of savings, if we don't have any breathing room, we never get a chance to ask why. Why are things like this? Have they always been this way? You don't think about why is it that if you add up the average salary and compare it to the average cost of living, food, housing, healthcare, that they're the same. But we don't have time to think about that when we're constantly treading water, right? If you are fighting, if you are struggling to survive, if you're fighting to survive, you're not going to fight for change, are you? So that's why we go home at the end of the week and start doom scrolling, right? Yes, Aroma. What we're saying is right now we all feel so stuck because the only thing that gives us that connection, that gives us that ability is money. What it comes down to, broke people don't change systems. Broke people just try to survive, right? And Keegan, I'd say yeah. But we also understand that our first steps have to be small steps together. We're not going to change, we got to get to know people before we change the world with them, right? Here's what it comes down to. We accept this bullshit because we have to. If everybody had 6 months of savings, would there even be a minimum wage? They would just have to offer more, because if everyone had 6 months of savings, no one's working for $7.25. If everyone had a real cushion, if we all had 3 months savings, would we tolerate the bullshit that our bosses put us through? The ego tripping, body snatching? How many of us, if we had time to actually breathe, would start asking bigger questions? Like, why are things this way? How did they get this way? And who does it serve? Paul, that is the federal minimum wage. What it all comes down to, it's not red, it's not blue, it's pressure. The more pressure they put on you, the more reactive we are, right? And then we've normalized living in a state of constant stress. It's how America wasn't always like this. And we're not that different. We're not so different that we're divided, right? Even people that think polar opposite of me, we are still more alike because we're regular, hardworking, everyday Americans. And here's what it is. People always go, why do people vote against their interests? Why do people vote against their interests? Because when you keep people stressed enough, when you keep people on the brink for long enough. They don't think. They just hear whatever soundbite sounds good and they go running with it. They just try to make it to Friday. We've got all these little sayings, right? Thank God it's Friday. Thank God I can stop treading water for 2 days and I can forget about how horrible my life is. But they don't give me long enough, because even if we had 3 days off, we'd have that one extra day to start asking why. Why are things this way? Why is it that my parents didn't have a life like this? Why is it that my grandfather was a goddamn pinball machine mechanic, right? That's exactly what it is. It is easier to manipulate a stressed person. But that's just survival psychology, right? And I really started to learn this when I got successful. I've got about 30 employees. And my goal could be to squeeze every dollar out of them, to drop them all down to $15, $20 an hour, make as much as I can off of my employees. But then what? They'd be stuck in survival mode all the time. And when somebody's worried about where their rent payment's coming from, when somebody's worried about where their kids' food is coming from, they're not going to be focused on their job. They're not going to live up to their fullest potential. And a little side note, this is what this is all about. This is why universal basic income should be a thing. This is why everyone should have all of their needs met. Number one, all humans have the same needs. We're not different. We all need food. We all need housing. We all need healthcare. Boom. Number one. Number two, we have been told the biggest goddamn lie is that if people are given what they need to live, that they'll be lazy. What? If you think about that for more than 2 seconds, if people get all of the food that they need and the housing that they need and the healthcare that they need, you think they're going to be lazy? God damn. I am like proof that they are not. I was able to get what I needed. I had security. I was able to take chances. I was able to innovate. And most importantly, when you have your needs taken care of, right? When you have your needs taken care of, you think about others. When your cup is full, you're not worried about how much anybody else has. You just want to make sure they have enough. Imagine every single, what's up, Charmitria? Imagine every single person in America was not scared of where their housing would come from, was not scared of where their next meal would come from. I think those people would contribute more to society, not less. And the fact that we've got such a large portion of Americans that believe that, hey, if you've got food and housing and healthcare, you'll grow up to be lazy? What? That sounds like some weird manipulative talking point that is absolutely untrue. Because I can tell you the only reason we go through these 40 hours a week and then boom, doom scroll and do nothing for 2 days is because we know we'll be right back to treading that water again. But do you know what happens when your needs are met? You want others' needs to be met too, right? You want others' needs to be met too. That's all it comes down to. If everybody lives up, if everybody lives up to their fullest potential, then they're always going to excel at what they do. Because people that are secure, they think more clearly. What's it? It's like, yes, you can go teach a man to fish. But if when you're teaching that man to fish, they don't have any food in their belly, well, they're not going to be able to learn very well, right? When you go to teach a man to fish, if they don't have a home to take that fish back to, then what's it going to be worth? All we're talking about isn't like luxury. It's the baseline of what people need to live, right? And realizing that should change everything. Being broke is not a personal failure. We can see it with the cost of living right there, right? Y'all, Two Thumbs comes in almost every day and pushes back against this. So they're not here in good faith. But it is funny to see how somebody who is not against this comes back over and over and over again, right? Earl, we appreciate you. This isn't a debate. All we're saying is that the stock market has gone up for the last 50 years. Wages have not. You can see the cost of living and the average salary right there. They're about the same. Not only top of that, anybody with eyes can see that the majority of competition is gone. There are no more local mom and pop shops, no more general stores, grocery stores, pharmacies, newspapers, banks, doctors' offices. And the whole point of that is that when there's no competition, corporations don't need to innovate, right? And so what it really comes down to is that we rely on the corporations for what we need to live. So we vote, we strike, right? We push back, but nothing ever changes because we rely on them economically. And as long as that happens, nothing will ever change. But 003, that's essentially what this is. We don't think this system is going to get fixed. We know what's going to happen is that when systems are this broken, they don't get fixed, right? They get replaced, but only when something better comes along. Fight the power. I think it's more that they're afraid to leave something they've always known. I equate it to a kid growing up in a house. Somebody's born into a house, and say that person lives in that house for 50 years. Well, by the end of that house, or the end of those 50 years, maybe the house has holes in the wall, it's leaking, it's drafty, it's really making this person sick, right? But when you go and try to tell that person, hey, there's actually a nicer house right down the road, it'll work better for you. It'll work for you instead of against you. Well, fight the power. I absolutely believe that the only reason that people continue to enjoy getting pegged by the oligarchy is that they've just been born in that house, and that's the only house they've ever known. My other analogy for it is it's almost like we are introducing the concept of automobiles. Hey, y'all, we got this automobile, an iron horse. But who was it? People like Earl have only lived with horses. They were born with horses. Their daddy had a horse. Their mommy had a horse. They had a horse their whole life. They loved those horses. Those horses were always there for them. Shit, the infrastructure in our society is built to support horses. We've got horse barns and horse roads and horse trails. So when we go to Earl and we tell him, hey, Earl, these horses, we know they worked for you. But if you can see, the majority of people keep getting bit by those damn horses now, man. So we're going to switch from horses to something that works better for all of us. Well, shit, I think, I love horses, but I think, knowing how passionate people are about horses, that it would be really hard for them to change, right? Be really hard for them to change. Well, I wouldn't even say not very compassionate or empathetic. It's essentially somebody being born into something that they just don't know any different, that they just don't know any better. That's like somebody who would be a Christian in America, being mean to Hindus in India. Oh, well, they're not very intelligent for not being Christian. Well, you can't really blame them, right? They were just born into that situation. If anything, we don't need to blame the people that have been brainwashed. We need to blame the people that are doing the brainwashing. That's really the big problem. So what we're talking about is that full-time work does not cover the basics anymore. Our economic situation and our political one are inextricably tied together. There you go, one whole. Good to see you, my man. And that's the big issue, is that we are trying to change a corporate system that corporations have set up while we all rely on the corporations, right? I'm with you, Fight the Power. But I think that if somebody is born into a system that only points one way, that we've got to get, and then, I mean, Trump says the words like, I love the uneducated for a reason. Because when you don't have education, you don't have a ton of perspective. Not only that, when you are just treading water all the time, you literally, your perspective is this. So I don't think a lot of people had the time or energy to even think about it, because I know that it was when I had financial security that I was able to think about this, right? That's what it is. And once people are able to not be barely scraping by in a system that screws them over constantly. No, I hear you. But that's where I'm not advocating for them. Basically, if anybody has their head in the sand, I move on, right? I move right on. I do not stay and try to talk to that bullshit, because I would much rather talk to people that are ready for change. But I also don't blame the brainwashed. I blame the people doing the brainwashing. You know what I mean? My dad doesn't have like a great education. Blue collar dude his whole life. And like, man, some of the things my dad says and believes like really frustrate me. But I just have to remember that like my dad like doesn't have the ability to think critically about information they are receiving. Dale, what's up, my buddy? And essentially, there's a couple different reasons why people, go through this. So let's get to the damn solution. What it needs to be is protests need to be recruiting grounds for the new system that we're building. Because essentially, right now, we are the ones that control all the things that humans actually need to live. We control the food. We control the housing. We control the healthcare. But we create it. But corporations control access to it, right? Corporations control access to us. Real quick, Ilaroma, what I believe will happen is once we start building something that works for people instead of against them, we will not need to convince them. They will start using our system. A condition of using our system would be that this system relies on holding hands or not stepping on each other, on linking arms, not stepping on each other. And that's really what it is I truly believe that a majority of people have taken on the traits of their abusers. So they go ahead and act like, yes, people aren't what matter. Monies are what matter. Let's step on other people for money because that's how you gain respect in this society. Well, what we are building is not only a new system, but we're creating a culture shift away from money over everything and towards people over profit. And what we are seeing happening is that when people like my dad who only shop at Walmart realize that, oh shit, the quality isn't that good. I only go there because it's efficient and my habit. Oh, and you're telling me I can go buy eggs from Nancy down the road and they're going to be the same price and higher quality? And Nancy cares about me because Nancy, I'm a neighbor to her first before. Oh, that is awesome. Fight the Power. We would love to. Our whole goal is to coordinate and amplify groups. What this is a civic force. This is 1,000 movements that know this is the moment to build community. That every single mass action, the goal should be not just to apply pressure, but also to stay connected so the next action is even bigger. We call it the momentum loop. Because if every action supports the next, community is the opposite of greed, and greed is the disease. Woke and cringe, if you are creating a tenants union, we can get you people. What this whole thing is people like you coming to us saying, I'm creating a tenants union. Us telling you, oh, great. We've had 600 people join our Discord in the last 10 days. We will put on the Discord, anybody interested in a tenants union? And then those people can choose that role. And then all you need to do is at tenants union, and you'll have hundreds of people. You can create one across the country. That's what we're building. We've already started food buying groups. We're putting together tenant unions, housing unions. We're bringing together worker co-ops. Everything we can, we're supporting, and we are making sure that every single mass action, March for Democracy, No Kings, they all know the goal of that shit is not to get together in a park and yell. The goal of protests moving forward is to support the building of tenants unions, is to support the building of new structures that make the next protest even bigger, to support the building of new systems that make the next boycott last even longer. Because what if we developed a system where we don't need to buy eggs from them and we boycott the fuck out of eggs for years? What if we developed a new system where we went to the doctors in our community directly and we stopped using their bullshit health insurance? Not needing corporations is leverage, right? Palin, you always have such wonderful to say. They did. They flipped the terms of the social contract. They made us think that we ride on their backs. No, my friends, they ride on ours, right? That's what this is. So, absolutely, Allery, that's what this is about. They don't control the actual value, the creation of these things, right? They control access to it. That's it. It's crazy. They control access. Somebody in your county is growing food, right? But then a corporation knows that if you just went and bought that food, you wouldn't need them. So the corporation goes and buys all the food. Not because they're going to make a profit on all that food, but if they control all the food, they control access. Same with doctors, same with healthcare providers. They make sure all the healthcare providers are in their network so they can't do anything else. And then they control access to them. Alari, here's what our idea is. So Woke and Cringe, you have to go to an outside browser. That's it. The TikTok browser won't allow it. Allery, sorry, there it is. You have it spelled. Allery. I can't wait to show you this. Woke and Cringe, please let me know if that works. Allery, I can't wait to show you this. Here we go. This is how we start food buying groups. All this really is a bulk order. That's it. It's a freaking bulk order, yo. So right here, tiny print, can't see it, but I'll make it bigger. Broken systems don't get fixed. They get replaced, but only when a better option comes along. So look, local food distributor. Let's see if I can get low enough. Oh. I know, I got to make a mobile friendly right now. So this is what all the stuff that is on the Discord, things like that. Let me go ahead. But really, it's you find 15 people, your friend finds 15 people, and you get one other person to find 20 people. Now you've got 50 people committing to buying eggs from a local farmer every single week. That's 500 eggs. If you just walked up to a farmer and were like, I want to buy 500 eggs a week, I bet you, Ulrich, that's our goal though. We're using this to get people there. And then once we've created this small business revolution, this co-op revolution, then we introduce alternative economies, bartering, time banking, because this happened in my business. Once I made enough money to live, it was, oh yeah, if you don't have money, I'm not going to turn you away. Let's figure out how to work together, right? Absolutely. Fight the Power. I would really like to connect with you because it's not only our group, we're already part of an umbrella group. It's called the massblackout.com, or sorry, the Mass Blackout, themassblackout.com. There's already over 100 local organizations that are a part of this. The whole goal is that every single mass action feeds the next one. So we've got March. So we had the February 17th flare action a couple days ago to reach out to your congressman. Then we have March for Democracy at the end of February. Then we've got No Kings after that. The goal of every one of those protests and rally is to give people information about the next one, but also to connect people locally with others in their area. Because mass action, the whole goal needs to be, what if every protest people left with knowing how to make the next protest stronger? What if every boycott, the goal was to make the next boycott last even longer? And if we compound our wins and stay connected, ultimately what we'll take back is control over the essentials. We got to keep our eyes on the prize, because it is about not needing corporations. What if every county in America controlled their own food? We'd have a lot more power to push back against the government. What if every county in America controlled their own health care, and a couple doctors that lived in that county made sure that everyone had quality health insurance at an affordable price? Because there are two ways to set up a society. Just two. You can make it so that the essentials that every single person in your country needs to live are really hard to get, right? Holy shit, Ulrich. Well, here's the other thing that we're doing with those egg buying groups, right? Say we got 100 people buying a dozen eggs a week. That's 1,000 eggs a week we're buying. Well, Ulrich, you know what I would do right away? I would get 20 chickens and I would tell them, hey, Woke and Cringe, I just redid the whole onboarding process. I'd love to chat with you to see how much you learned about, our movement, how it all works, stuff like that. But Ulrich, what I'm thinking is, once we are buying 1,000 eggs a week, nice, you can teach me. Once we are buying 1,000 eggs a week, I'm going to get 20 chickens, right? And I'm going to go to the person who's facilitating that bulk order, and I say, hey, I know you're getting 1,000 chickens from Ulrich. Or 1,000 eggs from Ulrich? Could I sell you 100 eggs a week, right? And then Woke and Cringe jumps in, and then Fight the Power jumps in, and suddenly Ulrich's not sourcing 1,000 eggs from one farmer. We're buying 400 eggs from one farmer, and then 100 eggs from 6 different community members. That's power. Power isn't control over Congress. Yeah, the midterm elections matter, but they'd matter a lot less if we controlled all of our food, because then we wouldn't have to wait for damn elections to make our voices heard. If we controlled the essentials, we could make our voices heard whenever we wanted. That's why everything is tied together. 40 hours a week doesn't cover the basics anymore, because when it doesn't, we don't have savings. When we don't have savings, we don't have enough money to live. When we don't have enough money to live, the cost of living and the salary is the same. We don't have any cushion. When we don't have any cushion, we are scared. We are looking for a problem. Oh, they control the media too. They spoon feed us the problems that make us most divided. Politicians are supposed to be there to help correct that imbalance, but we all know they are on the payroll of the corporations as well. So when people see this, they start to lose hope because, God damn, every pillar of power within society has been taken by the corporations, and we have to work so much just to survive. It doesn't feel like we'll ever have the time or energy to fix it. That is all part of the lie. Because they actually have so little power that they're really afraid of us figuring out how much power we actually have. Power is not coming together to take one act or to do one specific thing. Power is controlling the food. Power is controlling the healthcare. Leverage is not needing corporations for what we need to live, the food. Imagine if we controlled our food. We'd have a lot more power over our political situation. I was going to say, imagine if we controlled our electricity, but we did. We used to. We paid for all the infrastructure of our electrical grid. And in over like 50% of municipalities, the public electric grid got sold to a private company for pennies on the dollar. And now another essential that was built by the people for the people has been given to the billionaires so that they can control and exploit us. God damn, I sound like a crazy conspiracy person, but I mean, I laid out the facts, Jack. Because all that really happened, I don't think they're evil or sinister either. I think in the 60s and 70s, lobbyists got a lot stronger, started boycotting the government. They got rid of some of the anti-monopoly laws that were put in place in the late 20s and 30s. That allowed the power of corporations to grow. They saw how effective lobbyists were, so they doubled down on it. Right around at the same time, lobbyists were getting more power and control. A really cool thing happened. The internet came along. Holy shit, that internet made us more productive. We went from being able to make $1,000 a week to $10,000 a week because we were able to email people, Zoom all around, didn't have to call people, wait for this or that, go places. We could get shit done. But all the gains from our DARPA-funded, taxpayer-funded internet, all of those gains went to one place. They went to the 1%. They went to the people up top. Shit, and I haven't even said it this live. And that's the problem. The 1% have as much as 90% of us. I'm going to stay on this for a minute because that shit fucking matters. 1% having as much as 90% of us is the boss getting $1, or is the boss getting $100 and having the workers get $10, right? Is that if a bunch of people, sorry, real quick, this is the productivity, how much money we made for the goddamn companies is in blue. How much money they paid us is in freaking red. Right? So back in 1980, if we made $1 million for the company, we got about 900,000 of it. And 100 grand went to the CEOs and the C-suite. Now, holy shit. We make $1 million for the company. We're lucky to get 10, 15% of that. And so when people say that, hey, Americans are just lazy now, Americans don't know how to budget, because what really is funny is let's go ahead and now tie these two together. I haven't really tied these together ever, but goddamn, I don't know why, because they are the perfect combination of stealth and speed. No, of, hey, here's the graph of what happened, and here's the goddamn result, right? Here's what happened. Here's the mother effing result. So we aren't just talking about what's wrong. We are building what's right. Y'all, I'm live every single day at 11 a.m. to build this community, to get to know you. Because God damn, if we're going to change the world, we got to connect a little bit first, right? We got to get to know each other just a little bit. So come join us every day at 11 a.m. We also, you want to really be a part of the process of building this shit? Every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. That is when we have our Citizens Assembly. Everyone from across the country comes together, starts celebrating our victories, swapping strategies, connecting, getting to know each other. And look at this goddamn map. This is a population map. This is how many people are a part of this, that feel this, that want to change. We are all aching desperately for anything that changes this situation. But right now, they make it so difficult. Yep, the Discord, and then we meet on Zoom. So Alex Vasquez says, we outnumber them 100-1. Yes, Alex, absolutely. Thinking that is the only solution has led to us being stuck. Because I like to say this. So 1% of people have as much as 90% of us. That is one person. If we cut the American economy into 10 people that needed to make 10 loaves of bread, that is 10 people making 10 loaves of bread and one person taking 5 loaves, right? So then what we end up happening is, oh, well, like you said, why don't those 10 people just get together and they outnumber them, take what they need, right? Well, right now it's in a situation where you can't just take what you need. That person controls the farmland where we grow the wheat, the chickens where we get the eggs, the oven, right? So even if we wanted to take back control, we couldn't, because that person controls everything we need to make those loaves of bread. So that's really been the problem, is that we see us outnumbering them as us having power. Bullshit. Power isn't having more numbers than people. I think we all know that. You could have a group of 100 people with spears and a group of 10 people with ARs, right? Numbers don't fucking matter. Power does. And here's the other thing, right? They say an army runs on its stomach. Well, so does a goddamn nation. So if 1 million of us are out protesting, if 10 million of us are out protesting, and Alex Vasquez, this really lays it down for me, 10 million of us could be protesting. And I think it would be pretty damn easy for the corporations to get us to go back inside, right? Anybody protesting cannot buy medicine anymore. All the local pharmacies are gone. All the medicines manufactured by corporations. Corporations could so easily just say, all right, we're using AI facial recognition technology. Anybody that is out protesting is no longer allowed to buy insulin. Oh, and if you stay for 3 days, your family is not allowed to buy medicine either. Your parents can't buy medicine. Your kids can't buy medicine. Shit, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters. That's all they have to do. Because they control what we need to live. They can ban us from corporate grocery stores too, right? That wouldn't be the end of it because we could get our food somewhere else. But they could still make life a lot more tough for us. So go ahead, join the Discord. Be a part of this. We are not just talking about what's wrong. We are building what's right. I mean, we've got fucking momentum is all it comes down to. Right? We've got all of these mass actions coming up. We understand that the goal of the mass action isn't just to get frustrated and to be loud. No, it's to stay connected. It's to stay connected. That's what it is. Because if we stay connected after the mass action, oh, thanks, Alex. Because if we stay, it's really like, it comes down to, I have just mirrored my own journey, right? Every single No Kings that I went to, I was like, what the fuck is next? Why are we all showing up here and we don't have like this concrete goal of what we're doing next, right? That's all it is. So, y'all, so somebody like Keegan, they're not here in good faith, right? So this is where stop the power. If you're still here, fight the power. Keegan still has his head in the sand a little bit. Keegan doesn't believe this, and that's fine. I could care less what Keegan thinks. You know why? Keegan had a different understanding than me. He's had a different life than me. He's had a different experiences than me, right? So just because Keegan comes to different conclusions doesn't mean I'm like dead set on changing your mind, right? Well, that's where Ilaroma, some people have more patience than others, and maybe you're going to be our patient friend. But what I really think it comes down to is that a lot of people in America have been conditioned that life is competitive. It's really what it comes down to. It feels that way because they look at the animal kingdom and they go, oh, it's dog eat dog. And if that's the way it is for the animal kingdom, that's the way it is for humans. Someone like Keegan has never asked, what is the point of a society? That's it. What's the point of a society? Oh, MIAs. I'm right there with you. That was Ilaroma. Yeah, Discord link is in the bio. But that's what it is. I just honestly believe that when some people from birth have been told life is about competition, screw others over or else you're screwed. Life is about competition, screw others over or else you're screwed. Oh, that person, they have no value unless they work and make money. Yeah, somebody who does good for others, what does that do for the stock market? And they grow up believing that. So they think the way to achieve happiness is stepping on others. It's getting whatever they can at the expense of anyone, because who cares? If I didn't do this to them, they were about to do it to me. It's fear, right? Being afraid, scared. But it really is not thinking of what is the point of a society. Ullery, I will message you after I'm done too. What is the point of a society? Is it so that 90% of us can bust our asses, fight for survival, like barely have what we need to survive, just so 1% of the population can be insanely rich? I don't think that's the point of life. And it's so funny when people say, this is the way it is. This is just adulthood. They are just lazy. It wasn't always like this. The previous generation had it a lot better. The one before that, it was even better. Now, granted, oppressed and minority groups have always had a difficult time. But when the road stops working for the majority of people, this is what's so crazy, because I like to view it, think of it as an actual road where it's like the majority of people are driving down this road, and it used to be that 20, 30, 40% of people, 20% of people crashed on the road, right? And we would say, they're bad drivers. And that's so funny, gambling, because that's got to be one of the dumbest things ever, because it's about the end of their life. And so many people in the generational cohorts still finished off much better after the Great Depression, right? So what it really is the fact that we don't control what we need to live, right? We don't control what we need to live. So this is where, fight the power. This is what I'm talking about. So somebody like gambling addict, why, you know what I mean? Just move on. Put your head in the sand. They have their head in the sand, and this is how I know something's wrong. Because if gambling addict lived in that fake reality that they said, why would they be so mad to be here and pointing fingers at us? Go back to your nice life. If you have a 6-figure job with multiple homes and every single person you know is not struggling at all, why would you spend your time arguing on the internet, right? And that's what they all say, because your last 4 or 5 sure seemed like it. And then here's where I just blocked the shit out of them, right? We had somebody like gambling addicts who was pushing back against us stay on for 45 minutes. Do you know how someone stays and listens to something that they supposedly hate for 45 minutes? It's when what they feel in their heart and what they think they know in their brain are 2 different things. Their brain says, this isn't me, this is somebody else, right? But in their heart, because we as humans know life shouldn't be like this. Denial and their racist assholes. We all know it's fucking white men too, right? It's fucking white men. And I hate it when people say that, but like it is. Because it's just insane. The level of, because really is what it is I can see with people that I know, how if they literally are just like, oh, these are the people, you look around at your 5 friends who all had the exact same background as you. Some of you make a little bit less money and somebody makes a little bit more money, but it's like, well, wait, everybody I know is doing fine. That's because you're the ones with all the advantages, motherfuckers. God damn it. And then where I'm going with this is then somebody with gambling addict, if they do see themselves as failures, they can never admit it, because then that puts themselves at the same level as people they deem unworthy. Well, I can only speak to my personal experience, Charles, but I grew up in a suburban home with never needing anything, never wanting anything. I had security. I could take chances. That's all. And that is absolutely the advantages. Did I have to work my ass off when I started my business? Yeah. But was it a fucking advantage to have the ability to start a business? Hell yes. Because I knew I wasn't going homeless, right? That's what it is. Keegan, I don't engage with people that aren't in good faith, and I don't even care about if you think differently. You've had different this is what I don't understand, why people like you get angry and call names. You've lived a different life than I have, right? That's all. That's fine, Keegan. I would just say, I mean, Keegan, when I look at your picture, see, Keegan's been here 23 minutes. 23 minutes, right? Oh, man. And look, Keegan loves to label himself too. This is where I just block, right? I don't fucking care. Because that's not the kind of person that I literally give two shits about, because everyone else, right? Everyone else has different experiences, right? That's fine. It is fight the power. And that's where, yup, Alex Vasquez, well, that's where I need help, because sometimes I try to not, oh, somebody mentioned earlier, do I think only white people? No, not at all. But when a system was built by and for one group of people, generally they have the advantages. That's all. And Ilaroma, I don't care if they understand. You know what I'm excited about? You know what I'm excited about? When we build these food buying groups, when we create a system that works for people instead of against them. I was talking with an amazing creator on here. If anybody has seen Cut Off the Spigot, we are aligned with them. And we were both joking about how we're these non-corporate local option fighters. And both of our fathers love Walmart. But what I know will happen, and the day that I am very excited for, is when we build local community resources and businesses. Basically, when we start controlling the essentials, we don't have to argue with the people who have their head in the sands, right? They are going to tuck their tail between their legs and go, yeah, I don't think I like shopping at the corporations. Now that I have an actual alternative where I can walk into this store and Chrissy knows my goddamn name. Chrissy knows my kids. The food there is much better quality and it's about as cheap as the grocery store. Who would have known placing a bulk order with the farmers that live within 10 miles of us would be a better system than allowing corporations to control access to all the food and charge us whatever the fuck they want? That having stewards, people that controlled the essentials and saw their customers as neighbors first. We don't have to convince a literal single person. My dad might still go to Walmart every now and then, but you can bet your ass he's going to be getting a lot of his products from that new system, right? And that's why I just block the shit out of people, because it's like anybody with a different understanding and experience than mine can come in and talk. We're not here to fucking debate, though. When I started this, I had it all pulled up. You saw me. I had the productivity versus wage. I can get the cost of living. I can show you this or that. People don't change based on facts. People don't change based on conversation. Have you met an American adult lately? We change when we have experiences that affect our understanding of situations. That's it. That's the main reason, Ilaroma. I didn't say it right as well, too. 535, not true. Because this isn't about not being close to good farms. This is about somebody saying, all right, there's a farm 150 miles away from me. Well, there is an independent trucker that is sick of working for corporations. We are going to use them to help facilitate those fresh food coming down to where we are. We are connecting local people, because that's all the goddamn corporations do. They don't do anything, right? They don't do anything. Well, in Ilaroma, I just don't have the patience. So that's where you can be our front line. I just imagine you getting hit with these arrows of anger. But you have all the patience. So, but please join the Discord, everyone. Please. This is a community that we are building. It is so much fun when we meet people on the live and they come to the Sunday meeting at 1 p.m. So basically, we go live every single day to kind of break down the problem, obviously tell people about the group, answer any questions from people that are joining the group that want to know what to do next. But really, the way we shape this, the way you become part of the process. 535, the reason that they don't, farmers want to farm, right? Farmers want to farm. Safril, that is only required for not safe for work, 18 plus mature discords. If you are only a part of a Discord server that does not have material that is suitable for 18 plus, it is not required. Plus, for the people that don't want Discord, that's why we go live every day at 11 a.m. That's why we meet every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. 535, that is exactly what this is, kind of, right? That's exactly what this is. But the farmers are never going to combine. Farmers want to farm. Shit, most of the time, farmers came farmer because they don't want to network with people. And they're so habituated. We were all born. Where my 80s babies at? Where my 80s babies at? Where my 80s babies at? We were all born into this corporate system, right? We were all born into this corporate system. It's all that we know. So we just don't really think about, oh, yeah, I could just buy our food from the farmer. That's kind of what corporations do already, right? But farmers have also been a part of this habit, right? Farmers have also been, well, that's where Ilaroma, my heart goes out to your generation. Not that we're too far off, but God damn, it was difficult for mine with 9/11, financial crisis. I can't imagine what it's like for Gen Z. And part of the reason I'm doing this, I got 3 Gen Alphas. Oh, I forgot to say it. I just found out we're having a 3rd child. Woo! Very unexpected, but very fun. I can't tell anybody yet, so I figured I'd tell a bunch of strangers. Thank you. Well, we have 2 daughters already, so, and it was a complete surprise. I walked upstairs, and my wife had it in her hand. It just lights my fire even more than when my girls are 10 and 15, and I'm going to start crying, and 20 years old. There is no way in this world that I won't be able to look at. I'm assuming it's a girl now. I don't even notice because we've got 2 now. That there's no world that I will be able to ever look at them and say, Daddy didn't do everything he could. Everything he could. And it's not even just for my girls. I want this for fucking everybody. God damn. I had security. I was able to have the opportunity to live up to my fullest potential. And God damn, if just everybody in society had the ability to reach their fullest potential, their needs would be met. They'd care about other people. Because when your cup is full, you're not worried if other people have more than you. You just want to make sure that everybody has enough. Imagine how many goddamn people that were as smart as Einstein never reached their full potential. Because they were born to the factory employee instead of being born to the factory owner. So it's really not a smart way to lay out our society. Safril, this is a small business revolution. This will start with people recognizing, oh shit, I need a side hustle. I might as well screw over the corporations while serving my community. I have my own business. Small business is extreme passion of mine. And I cannot wait to find the first builder that says, all right, I am serious about this food group. I want to make $50 a week on it. And I don't want to exploit anybody. It's cost plus food. Y'all, we've heard of cost plus drugs, right? We love cost plus drugs because cost plus drugs signals they are a steward of our medicine rather than owners there to make a profit. It's, hey, we know you need this medicine. Here's what we paid for the medicine. Here's what it cost us to get you the medicine. Cost plus drugs, right? Well, there's going to be people that, so basically right now we have it set up so that you can raise your hand to become part of a food buying group, or you can raise your hand to become part of a direct primary care, or you can raise your hand if you want to support co-ops. But even if we get, so say we get like 50 people, and I'm in Maryland, so we'll say Maryland. Say we get 50 people in Maryland that all are like, all right, I want to buy eggs locally. I want to switch one product that I buy every week away from corporations to a local source. Well, somebody just needs to be the facilitator that gets all those people. All right, you 50 people all said, okay, all right, I'm going to build this. I'm going to reach out to the farmer, see how much they can sell us 50 dozen eggs a week for, right? Then once I get the price for the eggs, I'll come back to y'all. And look, here's what it is. At 50 people, we'll start off. There'll be no tack-on fee because it only takes me about 2 hours a week. Once this ends up taking me about 4 or 5 hours a week, I need to be just compensated fairly for my time. I'm going to tack on a 50-cent coordination fee, facilitation fee. And these 50 people, who knows, maybe you find somebody else to find 50 more people, right? Then they form an egg buying group. And they no longer purchase eggs from corporations. So it really takes multiple sides, right? People coming together saying, yeah, I'd participate in this if somebody put it together. But then we need the builders to come along and say, shit, I'll put that together. I'll quit, delivering Uber Eats for a week and see if I can set this up instead. Because that's how I think we're going to get people motivated. You can make money off of this, not as somebody who is exploiting it, but a steward. A steward. You still need to be compensated for your time. The people at Cost Plus Drugs, when they add on that extra fee, that fee is so their employees have food and housing and health care. And if they didn't tack on that fee, that company, that organization would not be able to offer the product, good, or service that they do. So to me, we should be happy to pay the fees because right now, that coordination fee, that facilitation fee, that's all going to the fucking corporations. Excuse my language. We just don't see it because they just jack up the price randomly, right? Cereal is up like $3 over the last 2 years. There's no reason for that. They just jack the price up because they want more money. But that's the difference. Your local food distributor, they wouldn't do that because Safril, you're their neighbor first before you're their customer. Because they know even if they did screw you over, they'd have to stand in line at the bank and see you and be uncomfortable. Why do you think CEOs have layers of insulation between them? And so go follow us on YouTube, Instagram. But really, YouTube is great for this. We're live every day at 11 a.m. TikTok's a little there. Insta is great. Reason I say it, White Witch says, General Strike USA, love it. That is the goal, White Witch, but right now we cannot General Strike. In order to General Strike, the majority of people need savings. And they made it so that we don't have 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months of savings. If we don't have that many savings, then asking people to strike is like asking them to jump off a cliff. Oh, just trust us. We'll catch you at the bottom. As long as a strike is a leap of faith, I don't know if it'll ever catch on. It needs to be a logical next step. So we build the systems to make the next protest even bigger, to last even longer. We can't just call for it and hope. Every single boycott needs to have the goal of building a system that sustains the next boycott. Not at all, White Witch, because it's a chicken and an egg problem. We have a general strike coming up April 5th. But the goal of that general strike is to not only put pressure on the system, it's also to show people how fucking hard it is to strike when the corporations control mainly where all Americans get their food from. Even while we're striking, we're still going to pay our electricity, our internet, our health insurance, our car payment, that shit all goes to corporations. Go try to buy a car from not a corporation. Go try to buy a house from not a corporation. Go see how many local food and grocery store options are available for you that are efficient, cheap, and available to you. Not that fucking many. So part of the strike shows people, right, that, hey, we're not in a position where we can strike yet. So we need to stay connected to build the systems so that we're able to strike. Boycotting and striking are the strongest actions we can take. It's really just flexing our leverage. That's why they made sure that there isn't really many places that are alternatives that we can use to not shop at corporations. They took away our leverage to boycott of where our money goes. Striking is just leverage over where your work goes. And if you don't have any savings, you don't have any leverage over where your work goes because you depend on that work for what you need to live. So if you haven't yet, join the Discord. We are live every single day at 11 a.m. We meet 1 p.m. Eastern every Sunday. And this is about using protests and mass rallies to, we don't call it mutual aid because that's just it's a muddy term, I think, to control the essentials. That's what it really is. Mutual aid builds community, and we are about building that. We're building leverage. Real power is being able to walk away from the system because we don't need them. And that's what we are building. But the only way that we cannot need them is if we control the essentials. Because once we control all of our food, once we control our housing, if we control our medicine and our healthcare, we don't have to negotiate shit. We've already built something that works for us instead of against us, right? We can literally just walk away, right? And right now, the system screws the majority of us over. Do you love your job? Right? But you also can't quit your job. So you're stuck in a position you don't want to be in. And to wrap it all off with the sentence I started it with, that's because how much money you have controls how much freedom you have. That's how much money you have. March for Democracy, Gregory K. I will be there. It is being supported by our group. There is also the Veterans March. I'm not sure if they're together. And here's what it is. William Winters, I feel bad for you, but you've just been brainwashed. So what I'm really is, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the brainwasher. Because I am a small business owner that is calling for a small business uprising, spring. And this will take 1 million small businesses serving other Americans. Do you even know what Marxism is? You don't. Because here's what happens. The first way they get us is they want us to fight left versus right. But people are starting to realize, well, that's kind of dumb to fight over that. So while listening for only, let's see how long William's been here for less than 2 minutes, comes in and starts just making assumptions and flailing all over. Could you imagine walking into somebody's living room, walking into their audience hall, and just thinking that you are the most important person in the room? So people that don't want to learn things won't, right? And this is where Ila Roma and everybody, I appreciate y'all. But I just don't engage. Because to me, wow, you are coming from a place of your mindset has been altered. And you believe that unless you step on other people, they will step on you. And that's just not the way life is. Every single person relies on everyone else. We built a society so that we could have security. But the people at the very top of that society have come together to cooperate to make sure that we stay competing. Because as long as we stay competing, as long as we stay fighting over each other, as long as we are fighting for survival, we will never fight for change. Right? And that's what this really is. So, Jerry, I appreciate you requesting up. We generally just don't have guests up. If you do want to join the Discord and get to know us, though, then we are happy to. Appreciate you requesting, though, or if you had anything in the comments you wanted to say to let me know. See, and then, like, what a weird sentence from William Winters. And that's where it just is, we don't need to engage, right? Because socialist, Marxist, the person clearly doesn't know what those words mean, you know? So, and what I do is I block them so that they don't report me, because that's what they do. So, Woken Cringe, appreciate you. Yeah, absolutely, Jerry Bell. I think that comes down to, really, of what I've heard is it comes down to Calvinism. Calvinism was one of the best lies told by a king. The harder you work, the more it is likely that you'll get to heaven, right? Sensei, I know. I think that's where a lot of this collective consciousness is coming from. Snowing in Stardew, good to see ya. Would love for you to join to hear some stories about what's going on in your area, how we can all support you. And then what it is, Jerry Bell, was we used to say, all right, God loves those who help themselves. The harder you work, the more likely you are to get to heaven. So the harder you work, oh, that must mean you're a good person, right? Then in America, we got rid of the God part, and we're like, oh, if you work hard, you make money. If you make money, that must make you a good person because you must have worked hard. So that's how we got this weird, like, rich people are inherently good, because it was this old sticking relief that was like, oh, well, if you work hard, you're more likely to get into heaven. Once again, I would love to be the king that made that shit up. Peasants, I just heard from God. If you work hard, if you double your output and make me twice as much money, you're more likely to get into heaven, right? That's it. Scottsdale, do you want me to block you? I don't know why you come back every day. I clearly don't care about your opinion. And it's so funny is what I don't get, because if Scottsdale really had a good life, I don't know if they'd come back every other day. What I don't get is why it bothers you so much. Because if you clearly had signs to the contrary, right? If you clearly had signs to the contrary that what I'm talking about is bullshit, then you would just say, this person is crazy. I'm going to move on with my life. But you're clearly bothered by what is said here because you come back very often to refute it. That's my only thing. I have a very nice life, right? I don't sit there and go into MAGA lives and try to fight with them, right? Because I don't care enough. what they are talking about does not affect me, and I know there's not an ounce of truth to it. Just like you wouldn't go to a flat earth live, right? Would you go to a flat earth live day after day, week after week, to push back against what they're saying? The only reason you do that is if you feel threatened by it. And again, I'm just living my experiences, because when I see a MAGA live calling people like me loser idiots, I don't get my feelings hurt and jump into the comments. I simply am like, oh, that doesn't affect me. I'm going to move on with my life. Right? And this is where I'm going to block you after this and we can go our separate ways. But at what point, how many percentage of people have to fail before you say the system isn't working, not the people aren't working hard enough? And for people like you, I don't know if you'll ever get to the point where you say, oh, 80, 85, 90% of people are failing. Oh, well, I'm just going to keep listening to the media that tells me they're not failing. And then we've seen it twice now, y'all. When people don't fight over left versus right, what do? They start fighting over economic systems. That's why this is called localism. I like community capitalism just as well. You know, hyper-local capitalism, community capitalism, localism, whatever you want to call it. But that's the next way they divide us. When we stop fighting over red versus blue, they start fighting over capitalism, socialism, communism. Anything but asking, why is this wrong? Like, why can't we just come together to ask questions? Why does Scottsdale feel the need to come back every single day, right? Why can't we just be like, oh, rather than fighting, rather than understanding that, hey, you had different experiences than me. So rather than fighting, it's literally like this. I believe that 2 + 2 equals, 4, or I believe that pi is 3.1679, and he believes that pi is 3.1678. And rather than sitting there going, why do we believe different things? We would rather argue over about what the next number in pi is. And I'm just saying, that's not the most efficient way to solve this problem. Because rather than fighting, I believe pi is 3.1628. Oh no, I believe pi is 3.1629. Who gives a fuck? Let's figure out why the people in charge had us going different ways. Because it sure seems to me that they keep us divided so they can keep power. So that's simple, y'all. So join the Discord. Discord link is in the bio. We are moving forward with people who do not have their head in the sand. We know this is the path forward. We're taking steps together to build it. And it's essentially like, we are sick of protests not working. We are sick of the end goal of protests being people just screaming, yelling, getting out their frustration. The goal of the protest moving forward needs to be, how do we make the next one bigger? How do we build local systems that sustain the next boycott even longer? And that is really how we are going to change things. We are already partnered with over 100 groups. Hopefully even more after we connect Fight the Power. That want to see progress. But we understand that that only happens if we stay connected after the mass actions. If we build a system that works for us instead of against us. Because we're not going to get 50 million people to agree. But if we are able to build something that works for people, a lot of times these broken systems, they don't get fixed, but they do get replaced by something that works for us. Because when it works better, you don't convince people, right? Say you had a hose and you had to drink out of that hose, but the hose has 1,000 holes in it that you barely get any water at the end, right? Well, if you're like, hey, what if we just try a new hose? You might get some more water. Well, some people are going to push back against that because they stick with what they know, right? But when they actually see us with that new hose guzzling down the water, what a silly analogy. But that's what it is, right? Somebody has something broken and they don't know how broken that shit is until they see something that works. There we go. That was a lot better way to say it. The system is broken. It's just most people don't know how broken that shit is until we build something better. Not because they're dumb, not because they're uneducated, because it simply has been the only system that we've all been in. That's why I call out the 80s babies and later, because 60s and 70s had a hint of some local and community power where we controlled the essentials. But damn, I feel like us 80s babies, we've lived in this corporate hellscape. All right, if you want to know more, check out our videos, hop into the Discord, do whatever you'd like. We're live every day at 11 a.m. Snowden and Stardew, we are working with them. So they plan another No Kings protest for March. It's predicted to be the biggest protest in U.S. history. And it won't change anything unless we stay connected. That's all it really comes down to. It will not change a thing unless we start building local groups. The goal of those local groups is to map and find local alternatives to control the essentials. That's what the point of the protest needs to be, not to just effing yell, right? It is to take back control of the essentials, because that's what real leverage is. And then once we take back control of the essentials, we don't have to fucking negotiate. We can walk our asses away. That's leverage. That's power. We can literally just walk away. We won't need this system anymore. And that's what gives us leverage. Not needing corporations is what gives us leverage. Every single protest should work towards us building towards not needing corporations. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of the day. Join the Discord. Come back tomorrow. Love y'all.